Hey, this is Pete from 21st Century Prepper. Tonight's podcast, we're going to be discussing prepping with children and emergencies with children. I have Skip with me.
Good evening, everybody.
I'm Richard.
Hey, guys.
David.
Good evening.
And we're being joined by Lisa.
Hi.
Okay, so kids and emergencies. One of the greatest thing you'd want to have with you when you're going into an emergency situation is a kid with you or multiple kids with you. Tough enough to know how you would handle it, let alone a 2-year-old or a 14-year-old. So it's probably one of the nightmare scenarios is having your kids along with you if there was an emergency. So to better get them prepared for such things without scaring the bejesus out of them, how do we do that? There's one source that I'd like to push on people, and that's going to the FEMA website, and they have a bunch of stuff on children and disasters. There's a monthly newsletter you can sign up for. There's a whole gamut of stuff. There's multiple, let's see, the National Strategy for Youth Preparedness Education. There's pamphlets you can download. There's stuff you can take and have your school fill it out. It's just a bunch of stuff. So please go to the FEMA website, and all you have to do is search children, and it'll pop up with just a ton of stuff. All the resources, the media, the social media that they have for kids, the recovery resources, everything, from physical to mental to equipment to whatever. They have a ton of it. So please go check that out. It's a really good resource. So we've all been through. We all went to public school, probably. Well, even if we didn't go to public school, if we went to private school, I'm sure they had fire drills. But we all had fire drills and tornado drills, probably when we were in school. And you kind of made light of it, and it was fun, and whatever. But kids, that's why kids are that way. They're kind of nuts sometimes. So, Lisa, you have 2 pretty young guys.
I do. First and 4th grade.
Yep. How do you approach things with them?
I just talk to them like they're not almost adultish. I just go through. It depends on what kind of emergency. If it's weather related, of course, stay at school and listen to the teachers. If it's related to maybe a bad guy situation, I always tell them to look around. If it's safe to escape, you don't always have to listen to your teacher. But I just tell them to listen to the teacher for guidance. That's about it. And to meet each other we're walkers. I tell them to meet each other at a certain fence if they're able to escape, if it's an appropriate time to escape. And if there is ever anything, the school's pretty good about getting messages out. I would take off wherever I was and meet them because it's only a few blocks from our house, but it would be easy for me to go and retrieve them, but they know to meet each other at a certain fence.
What about like fire stuff at home or whatnot?
Yep, I go over if there is a fire, and they have to feel the door, of course, and the doorknob. If it's hot, I tell them to open the window, push the screen out. If they're unable to pick up something heavy, break the glass, lay a blanket across the bottom sill. And I always tell them broken legs are better than dying.
Yes.
So I tell them to just jump out. One, there's a hot tub pool cover 5 feet, maybe 8 feet from their window, which isn't that big of a deal. But the other one, it's going to be a lilac bush and some rocks. So, scrapes and bruises, way better. And then we meet at the neighbors across the street in their driveway.
Okay.
There you go, nice plan.
Hey, and if it's a lilac bush, if it's in bloom, at least they'll smell nice when they're
exactly one of my favorite smells.
Lilacs is de-stressor.
Yeah, there you go, right there. You're 2 for 1. the shock of the fall and hitting, and then you're like, hey, wait a minute, it smells really good, and I'm calm.
Breathe deep.
Yes.
Breathe deep.
Finding my safe space.
Did everybody have the fireman sticker thing on their window when they were a kid?
With how many people were in the house?
No,
You didn't have that?
I didn't.
We got a thing from the fire department when you went to school or whatever. And it was a oval sticker and it was like a silhouette of a fireman holding a child, and that you were supposed to put that on your window where a kid's bedroom was. So if there was a fire, and it kind of reflected a little bit, it was like foil. So
That's awesome.
We had that. Yeah.
I had it when I grew up in Nebraska. I had it there, and then when we lived in Minnesota, a couple of places we had them there too. So
they had it with pets.
They don't
too.
do that anymore, but
yeah, they had it with little pet icons. You put like 2 dogs or a cat and all that next to it. I remember those.
Okay. So, Richard, all your kids are a little older, right? You're adults.
They are, and we've had some education with them about where to be and rally points. They're all living away from home, so they know where they need to go to if something happens. They all have a little bit different view of what preparedness is. And if you've got any older kids, you can't tell them anything until they get to be about 25 or 26, and then they go, oh, they actually were pretty smart.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we have our younger one is very preparedness minded. She was paramilitary. Our middle daughter is closer to being liberal than conservative, but she knows she needs to come out here. She spent all her time in universities, and that's where she works, and that has a lot to do with that. And then our oldest one is like, okay. When you hear him speak, he talks like he knows what he's doing. So, we'll see. All you can do is go over it with them, and they think about mom and dad, then they'll be here.
Yeah. Hopefully they follow through and they're able to get there. I have 2 kids. I've talked to both of them about stuff. They're both in their 20s, so
Right.
You just kind of hope that they remember when something comes up. My daughter is a badass, so I don't worry about her safety as much as I would for maybe someone else, one of her friends or whatever, is kind of the flighty type or whatever. But my son's a little, I don't know how to put it. He's a little too. Oh, I'm losing it. I can't think of what. He's a little too open to, hey, let's go do this, and kind of. So he could get himself into trouble, and maybe not.
Is he too trusting of the world?
Too trusting, yeah. A little too trusting, and he might get himself into trouble and not realize he's getting himself in trouble, or if there is trouble. Although at one time when he was still in high school, they had a drill. They had an active shooter drill, and the teacher was out of the room, and everybody was goofing off and everything, and he stood up, told them all to shut up, and he went and locked the door and watched from the door and turned the light off and made everybody go where they're supposed to go.
And you're worried about
that.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man.
Well, I just remembered he'd done that. And he's like 5'5" and 120 pounds soaking wet, so he's a pretty tiny guy. And they all listen to him. So, but we got a call from the teacher called or sent an email and said, yeah, he took over when I was out of the room during the active shooter drill. And
nice.
Did a really good job. So, but now he's older, and he's not in that structure of school anymore. So I don't know how he'd handle quite stuff like that. But Skip, you got 2 kids that are
11 and 13, and we've been through a few things here. The one thing that is as weird as it is to say, but when Hurricane Sandy hit, the first thing they were worried about was like their bicycles being outside and like that. And don't dismiss that for a kid, because it is important to a child. You know what I mean? But I'm in a little different scenario because I'm in a split up household. So my kids live with their mother part of the time and live here. So we have talked about emergency situations and what we were to do, and they're to stay put there unless they absolutely can't. And then there's another place that they're to go. There's just a family member, and if mom doesn't know and there's no communication, they go to that family members. And we have a fire drill much like Lisa does. I'm fortunate that my kids could get out very easily. They know how to use the fire extinguishers here in the house. That was something that
Very
taught
important thing.
them very long time ago. The shooter situation in school, our county schools are really good about that. They hold drills all the time. They hold live cops. There's cops on campus constantly. Unfortunately, we did have an incident here in Maryland, but you saw how that reacted and how quick that went. So they know the basics. Hide in the closet, do what you got to do, and just like Lisa, don't always listen to the teacher because the teacher might not necessarily be giving you the right answer.
Yeah.
Right.
The teacher might be freaking out. David,
Yeah.
you were discussing that earlier before we started recording about the daycare situation and
This morning.
yeah.
Yeah, this morning we live in Oklahoma. Last night and this morning we had lots of fun with tornadoes, small tornadoes, the kind that they'd have trouble predicting. They spin up. This is all, a 5-10 minute deal, and it may last for another 5 or 10 minutes, and it's gone. And we had enough warning. I work for a Indian tribe here in Seminole County in Oklahoma, and they have got daycare centers scattered all over the county, and one that's in the area that I operate in. I heard they went to talking about the possibility of a gust front and maybe some tornadic type activity. So I went down there, and as I got there, I've got a smartphone like probably most of us have got, and I got the push message that we were take cover immediately. I mean, you couldn't have scripted this any better. But when I went in the daycare, they had already got the kids lined up. They've got these shelters, underground shelters, and they're really cramped for space. I mean, and a lot of people have problems with going in that dark. They don't know what's in it. And the lady that's the director of the daycare center told me later. I knew she was having some problems, but they were on the verge of losing that. And the kids were watching them, and they were, they had them in line, and they were beginning to jump around. And they were beginning to get upset. So we get them all out, get them in line. We get in the shelter, and I ended up getting in both of them. Get in, they're long. So I got down in it, walked across, got out on the other side, and went to the other because they were facing each other. And they were probably in there, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes at the most. We got them back out, got the kids back in, and by the time we got the kids back in, they'd settled down. But the adults were the ones that were the issue because there were some, I guess those girls were probably in their early 20s, and I have a hard time believing that's the first time they've ever been exposed to anything like that. But, it's just like they're in freak out mode. And if you don't think kids don't pick up on that, you should watch that. And we got them through. Like I said, the director told me later that he was claustrophobic and was on the verge of having a panic attack, and had to resort to, in her mind, counting backwards from 100 to regain her focus and do. She said, "I'm glad you came because I don't know that I could have got that done." And I thought, golly,
Yeah,
but,
that's bad.
it's a situational awareness. And if you need to, be walking yourself through that, how I'm going to do it, because the body won't go where the mind hasn't already been. I mean, that's a proven fact. And if you don't think about this stuff, scenarios, role play it, however you got to do it to get, to where you need to be, because that's, you lose control of the group and then you got a problem.
Yeah.
And that's the wrong time to have a problem.
Especially when it's children.
Yeah, these kids were probably 3 to 5. I don't think any of them were school age. And they were, when I first got there, they saw me and they thought I was an army person because of the way I was dressed and the uniform I was. and so I hit it off with most of them right off the bat. But they went to watching what I was doing, and I was kind of trying to interact with them. And I've had a lot of experience working with kids. I had a similar situation that back in 2010 with the teenagers, 17, 18, 19-year-old juvenile delinquents and youthful offenders that they weren't as nice as these kids I dealt with this morning. But it's the same kind of deal. If the adults, if the what's the word I'm looking for? If your leaders' positions of authority lose a grip and start, crying, whatever they're, these ladies, some of these, they were already getting the sniffles and the teary eyes, and those kids see that.
Absolutely.
And then immediately they think something's wrong. And really, in reality, there is something wrong, but somebody's got to step up and say, all right, here's what we need to do. Let's go get this done. Everything's going to be fine. You just keep telling them it's going to be fine. And eventually, when you start doing what needs to be done, they'll fall in line, or these kids did. And we got them in. Kind of made a game out of it. Got them in and out who could get in the quickest, and got in, got out, and they went on to breakfast, and everything was good. Now, and I told her, I said, probably at some point today, or earlier in the day, would be better. You need to process this with what these kids, let them talk about it, and you want to try to you're going to put a spin on it to where it was a positive deal, not some kind of tragedy. I mean, because fortunately, nothing happened. That tornado went north of where we were at, and so we, other than getting wet, getting rained on, a little bit of lightning, that was about all we had to deal with.
Yeah.
But you process it with them, and I'm sure later on these kids will remember that, and it's not really they're not scared of it because they've experienced it.
I had a game I played with my kids when we were stuck on the side of the road. The car broke down because I bought a used car, and it was just a lemon. And we were on the side of the road, and it was hot, and it was horrible. And I called my dad, and he was on his way to give us a ride, but it took him an hour to get there. And the kids were getting nervous, and it was a busy highway. And this game helped us, and it was the camping game. When I go camping, I'm going to bring and then my name is Lisa, so I have to think of a word that begins with an L. And we just kept going around and around. And you have to think of games ahead of time and have in your mind, what can I do to distract them? Because I might not know in the moment of panic. Because seriously, my gut was wrenched. My heart was heavy. I was achy because it was hot. This is before I became kind of a prepper. So I had no water. It was too hot to even roll down the car window because the sun was blasting on us. And so we just played a game, and we laughed, and we would just make up things, and it helped. We still suffered because of it, but it made it just a little bit more bearable because we were talking and attempting to laugh. So have a couple games to play with little kids that makes them use their mind and imagination, and whatever it is, look online for word games or something to keep them thinking.
Yeah, and your kids are going to remember. Your kids might remember that, but they're going to remember the fun that they had, not the.
Yeah, they won't.
I hope so.
They won't have that. They won't have that bad memory to associate it with.
Yeah.
So the next time they do it,
yeah.
I've done this before.
It was probably harder on me because as a
No,
parent,
I'm sure it was.
how could I let this happen? How can I not have, water and gummy snacks, or how can I not have anything? So yeah, it probably was. They were probably like, "Oh, Papa's going to come pretty soon. It's so hot." But inside, I'm going, "Jeez, I hope nobody hits us. I hope, some weirdo doesn't stop," because I was unarmed at the time. I had nothing, and
But you didn't convey that. You didn't convey those feelings to your kids.
Heck no.
They didn't get the same. They didn't feed off of that.
Nope. Yeah. It was, let's play a game. It's going to be a while. Papa said he's coming. Let's just play a game. Inside, I was like, shit, this is ridiculous. How can I not have anything?
Right.
But
well, that's a good segue into a Bob or a get home bag for a kid. Now, I see lots of questions on what can my kids take to school. That's a tough one because it depends on your school district, and so that's solely on you to find out, to call your school or to go in and ask, what can I have with my kids? Can they have a first aid kit? Can they have, whatever. Mr. Army Man showed up this morning there. I'm just guessing you're You were probably wearing some camo, right? And some.
No, I was actually in uniform, but I had a gun, I had a radio, I had all that stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, see,
I don't know where this kid come up with this army deal, but dude, I took that and run with it.
oh
Right.
yeah, oh yeah, you got to when it's kids.
But what I took out of that is he saw me as an authority figure, and and he had his little camo shorts on and his little camo shirt, and we're all on the same team. And
Yep.
if you don't think I didn't exploit that, you're crazy.
Right.
'Cause that's when I got on inside and saw what was going on. This kid I got him up towards the front of the line, and the kids started watching him, and the rest of it was easy.
Yeah,
The
you
adults
picked that
followed
lieutenant.
me. Here we go, and we're going to go out here, and here's what we're going to do.
Yep.
And it worked.
But some school districts in the country would might frown upon having stuff with you.
Mhm.
I don't think around here anybody would care. Some school districts you walk in with a camouflage T-shirt on and they're going to freak out. And
Yeah.
I drove
Well,
by a school here a couple weeks ago and the principal was head to toe in camo. So
Yeah.
it's it all depends on your area. So the school supplies to send with your kid, that's something that you really need to research yourself, get a hold of your either the principal or counselor of the school, even go to a council meeting, go to a student
Parent teacher.
Board of
parent
Education
teacher
too.
meeting, or go to the school board meeting and ask. And maybe they would have no answer for you because they don't think that way, and maybe they don't have any rules. So
Well, and it may be that you start asking those questions and you quickly get labeled as a whack job.
well,
I mean, you're gonna
you
have to play
could,
that by
but
ear.
that goes to you ask the questions
Yeah.
carefully. It's how you word them.
And they may have it. I know here, and I don't have any kids in school. Mine are all grown. But what I keep hearing people talk about, and what I've kind of seen, are kids coming to school, younger kids, and they've got these clear backpacks that everybody got to put their stuff in, so you can see the weapons or whatever the case may be. And and it may be that I think they have a list on the school website of things that they kind of want you to bring, and you can kind of go off of that.
Well,
It might not you might not have to actually ask that question. You can just do
Yeah.
the research.
well, I can tell you with my kids in school, they are allowed, let's say, 3 pencils, 2 pens, a calculator, a ruler, a whatever their books are, and a phone or tablet, and that is it. And you're not
That's
allowed
it,
to have
huh?
anything
Yep.
else.
And it's got to be in clear backpack.
And you're not bringing anything else.
Yeah, I don't think they even. We don't have metal detectors here. We don't have. So kids could walk in with a full med kit with scissors, with shears and everything, and then no one would know. I don't. They probably wouldn't even care. So, but to like a regular bob for kids, the typical stuff. If you want them to carry, depending on obviously the kid, they're all shapes and sizes, and you want a tiny little bag for a 4-year-old to carry, then maybe a bottle of water and something to occupy them, some kind of game of some sort,
A
a
tablet.
couple of crayons. The next time you go to like a restaurant and they give the kid like the pack of 3 crayons, the color on the
Mhm.
take them crayons.
Mm-hmm.
throw them
If you have
Throw-
any extra,
throw them in their bag, and just something to occupy them. So other stuff in the bag, that's purely just like a regular bob for an adult. It's built around the person, so it all depends. There's mature 12-year-olds and really immature 18-year-olds, so it's it's solely up to the person you're making it for, that you're putting it together, whether you give them some kind of blade or fire starting. If you got some kid that really likes fire, you probably really don't want to give them matches or a lighter, because maybe they just start everything on fire.
And it also depends on where you live.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because right
that's-
now we're 3 blocks from school, maybe 4, which is no big deal. You don't need a water filter for that, or
yeah, yeah.
I put in just an extra bottle of water and snacks in case they are held at school for any reason. So they get 2 extra snacks, a granola bar and like a pack of gummies.
Mhm.
That's always in there. And I always put in a little pair of shorts or pants in case they have an accident, which I think it's a waste of pants, but they're young, so save them an embarrassment throwing a pair of pants.
Mhm.
You could just have them keep in their locker a jacket if they get cold and if they're at school being held for anything. I know once they hit junior high, that's going to be 3 miles across town. They won't be able to just run out the back door and run home. They could, and maybe at that point I would beef up their bag a little bit. But with what? I don't know. You don't really need that much for 3 miles. They could hoof it home in an hour, less than, and then we're probably stuck again with a bottle of water and a couple snacks.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just if anybody's ever seen my video on my bob, I don't have a lot of my bob, and that's for 3 days. So it's I'm kind of the minimalist bob kind. I don't do the 55-pound
Ultralighter.
bug out bag. I do the mine's about 6 pounds with water. So it all depends on your abilities, their abilities, what their knowledge is, all that stuff. So,
can I add something to that for their
Yeah.
bob? When they travel to go see their dad, he lives out of state. So when I pack a bob for the airport, then I put in a first aid kit, a flashlight. I'll add way more snacks and food. Gum. I'll put in a deck of cards. Remember those Mad Libs that we used to do when we were little, Pete?
Yep.
They love doing Mad Libs, and so time occupiers and just extra stuff. Maybe sunscreen or bug repellent, but just a little bit extra. But that's for airport stuff.
Well, one thing I carry for just comfort is just the cheap old glow sticks you can buy at the Dollar Tree. A couple packs of glow sticks, because if a kid's freaked out and stressed out, and you hand them that, and everything's automatically cool because they're holding a glow stick, and they're very useful. So
yeah, cool.
now, Lisa, when you drop, how do you handle the airport? Do you?
Their dad picks them up.
Yeah, I
And
know,
so
but when you take them, do you don't get to go through security and wait with them, or do you?
No, It's
No.
curbside. So he meets me at the curb, grabs their
Oh,
gear and
you
heads
fly
out,
with them.
and then
You fly with
and then
them.
when I go pick them up in our divorce, it's the parent on duty picks up the kids. So then I have to fly out of state to go pick them up.
Okay.
And so he drops them off at the curbside for me, and then we go through security together with the kids and I.
Okay.
And so
I after I asked the question, then I remember that you had flown down to pick them up. So,
Yeah.
but other people don't have that, and they just send their kids. I
right,
don't. Sometimes they have airline employees with them or not, but
I won't do that yet. He wants
Yeah.
to kind of see pay an extra $100 for the babysitter. I will not do that. They're only 7 and 10. Not until they're 13 and maybe 16. Then I'll do it. But they're still nervous. They don't want that. And there's no way. Don't be cheap when it comes to something like that.
yeah.
God, they'll probably end up in Bali or something, and then I'll just
yeah, right.
So we don't do that.
When one thing we want to touch on real quick, when I first got together with my wife here, her 2 kids, we always did the stranger danger thing. Unfortunately, strangers are usually the ones you don't have to worry about. It's the people that they know that you have to worry about.
Yes.
So, I tell my 12-year-old stepdaughter, kick him in the balls. And she asked, "What if it's a woman?" I said, "You ever heard of a titty twister?" And she started giggling.
See,
Oh my God.
She started giggling. So, and it's not like don't yell help, you yell fire, because that gets people's attention more than help does, for anything, because people want to watch stuff burn as opposed to help anybody. They'd rather, watch something going on as opposed to care about anybody needing help. So, it's touched on Bob's. We touched on the FEMA deal. Again, please go to the FEMA website and just search children in their thing, and it'll pop up with numerous things you can go through and PDFs you can download. There's stuff for the kids to do. There's like little testing forum and everything. So it's a great resource to look at. So definitely check that out. Anybody have anything else?
I can't think of anything. Well, actually, I
Miss
do.
anything clearly?
See, I taught my kids with self-defense: eyes, nose, throat, crotch, and stomach in that order. You know, that's the one thing I taught them.
Nice.
Kids should be, especially if they have a cell phone or whatever. My kids got their cell phones. First thing I put on there was weather app. So the older kids, the ones that have the phone, they understand. They can look up the weather. They get alerts just like we would.
Good idea.
Listen to the teachers. Listen to anybody in authority, as long as they have it together. But that's tough for a kid to figure out if we should listen to Mrs. Johnson when Mrs. Johnson's crying, or because we've been told to listen to Mrs. Johnson. But, well, sorry, Lisa, I used the wrong name there.
That's all right.
Mrs. Well, it's Johnson with an S-E-N. Mrs.
I know, we teach them to be polite and to respect and to listen to.
Yeah.
But I know, and it's hard because I was pretty pliable when I was young. It's not until I was mid-20s when the sass really came on strong. And now, yeah, there's not much. There's not much that'll keep me from something that I know is wrong.
Yeah. Okay, Mrs. Wilson.
There you go.
Listen to Mrs. Wilson until
It feels really wrong.
Yeah, it feels. No, I don't want to go. I don't. No, and that's tough. That'd be tough for
It is.
a 5-year-old. It'd be tough for a 10-year-old. It may not be as tough for a 16-year-old because they're in their defiant phase already anyway. But and if they know, the more you teach your kids, the more you share with your kids, the more they can make that judgment call and say, I shouldn't do that, or that's not what we should do. And
I
they're
think
your kids.
don't sugarcoat either. Although we all are preparedness minded, I never sugarcoat when I talk to my kids. I talk to them like they're older. I don't swear like I normally do when I talk to my friends, but I don't sugarcoat because I don't feel like it does them a service, any kind of service at all.
You don't want to freak them out, but
No.
it's
No.
it's that use the proper terminology and the proper approach. You can get a lot of people to do something they don't want to do if you approach them in a certain way.
Right.
That's why on the page I say we don't talk about politics, but you can bring up things if you state it correctly. If you
Right.
But most people can't state it in a smooth manner. They usually just cut throat.
Abrupt.
Yeah, they go for it and delete. But if you state it in same thing with your kids. If you bring it along and let them work through it, and have them ask questions. That's the biggest thing. They got to ask questions if they don't understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
Okay, I guess we'll wrap it up unless anybody come up with anything.
I think we've covered it.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Well, make sure you check us out on the Facebook page, 21st Century Prepper, and also on the internet, on the website, 21stcenturyprepper.net, and all those other pages, Pinterest and Twitter. Change your Twitter password. They came out with something today, so and all those
Thanks,
other
Dad.
things. Yeah. So, okay. Thanks, guys.